Well, hello everyone, and welcome to MindAbility Matters. And today I'm really excited to have Siobhan Godden with me. I've known Siobhan, God, how long have we known each other now? 2 years?
Must be a couple of years, yeah.
I think it is a couple of years. We've had loads of fun together over the years. She's been
Yeah.
an absolute pleasure to work with. She's founder of Equality Consulting and Coaching. And some of the stories she's got to share, and some of the work she's done in helping organisations to scale, the importance of emotional intelligence and creating high performance teams through those times is critical. But I could talk about her for hours. But Siobhan, why don't you introduce yourself to everyone?
Thank you, Sam. Yes, so I'm Siobhan, and I'm a HR consultant and coach. And actually, I am founder of Equality Consulting and Coaching, but I am going through a rebrand at the minute. So you never know, might change a name. Let's see. I'm working on it at the moment. I've got some more creative brains helping me with that. So let's see.
That is so exciting.
Yes, it is. It's fun.
So I know that in a lot of the work that you're doing, it is about creating that change and the high performance piece.
Yeah.
How did you get into this?
Well, I've been in HR forever, probably 20 odd years. Don't feel that old. Um, and in a corporate role. And I work for organizations that did have high performing teams. And it's that classic scenario where you come out of that space and you realize, oh, it's not like that everywhere. Who knew? And you realize kind of what you've learned and gained through that experience that others haven't had that opportunity to do. So it was kind of organic and by accident, if I'm honest, because it was that realization of, oh, okay, this isn't normal things then. I thought this was like bread and butter stuff, but apparently not. So that's kind of how I ended up doing it, really.
And when you look back at all the clients that you've worked with over the last couple of years, what are you most proud of?
I tell you what, a lot actually in terms of growing the business and just learning how to start a business, that in itself, because it's something I've always fancied doing. It's something that's always been in the back of my mind, and it took a lot of procrastination for me to actually be like, I'm going to do this. So that for a start, the fact that I've even done it and I've learned loads of stuff, I'm really super proud of. But the other thing is the connections I've made and the actual friendships, because when you're taken out of that corporate setting and you're forced to network and meet people, and I've got involved, I do coaching as well, and I've got involved with coaching some other HR professionals, and it's really, really kind of fills my heart when I see their growth and I make real connections with people, just get it. And yeah, an actual I've made so many new friends from doing this. I think that's what I'm most proud of, really, because it's an unexpected byproduct of it, I think, that I wasn't expecting, so it's a bit of a bonus.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? I often find that when people, when I've observed them over the last 10, 15 years, when you're coming out and you're starting your own business, you come out of corporate, it's not that your core friend circle changes, but actually how you operate and
Mm,
in your day-to-day life. And to your point, you extend friendships, you have new friendships that you never thought you'd have before.
yeah. Yeah, exactly, and it's that whole collaboration piece, and that was the other thing that I found really heartwarming was meeting other HR consultants and other coaches. We all just wanna help each other.
Yeah.
Um, there are little pockets where there's a bit of competition, but you know what? There's so much work to be done in the world of work generally, and there's so many insightful, interesting people in that space that are worth listening to,
Yeah.
that why close yourself off from that? And actually, it's a really good community of people trying to do good things, which
Absolutely.
best thing about it, I say.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And if you look at, say, some of the outcomes you've got for your clients over the last
Mm.
couple of years, what what are you most proud of in that regard?
Their growth actually, and what I've realised is because when I started off doing, because originally I thought I'll just do coaching, and then I was like, no, I still really love HR. I want
Yeah.
to bring that into my business too. And I didn't really quite know what kind of clients I wanted to work with. But what's ended up happening is it's those kind of either entrepreneurs or business owners who have got to a point where they've got to their business, they're really successful, but they're growing, but they have that kind of self-awareness, I suppose, where
Mm.
they're like, I've got it this far, I now need some help. And so they realize that actually somebody, maybe a HR person and a marketer or finance director, and actually they value my input and they listen and they go, oh, okay, so what? And they really genuinely want that expertise, and then they put it into place. It's like I've had one of my longest serving clients. I was with them yesterday, a company called Warranty First, and they have doubled in size since I've worked with them in 2 years. They've pretty
Wow.
much doubled in size, and you could the growth of the leadership team, where they've all come from their own personal growth, how the culture of the organization has changed dramatically, and very consciously, we want to create something here. So that is, it's just amazing to see actually when you think about in a very short space of time where they've got to is pretty amazing, really.
That's phenomenal. And what are the key skills do you think that they've learned from and with you through your coaching that's facilitated that growth?
I think it's things like, well, there's the standard stuff, there's the system stuff. We talk about that in our group quite a bit because
Yeah.
it's not necessarily the most natural side of HR because it feels a bit technical, I suppose, but it's that foundation of being able to scale up. So it's things like, being able to grow a business, but that doesn't necessarily mean bringing lots of people in. There is an element of bringing in skills, but it's also an element of making sure that the business is sustainable so that the people you've currently got can grow with it.
Mm.
And that's one of the key things. So it's looking at, developing all the employees. It's about culture and about mindset. And there's a real shift in mindset from going from a really small SME to a medium-sized one. It is a quite a big mindset shift, and it's bringing all the people along on that journey. And that's the bit that they kind of needed a bit of guidance on around, okay, well, how do we bring them on this journey with us? Do we have the right people, or do we have to have some difficult challenges, which isn't the favorite part of anyone in HR,
Mm.
but sometimes for the greater good, it's the right thing to do. And then it's right, how are we going to bring them on? How are we going to, skill them up, get the culture embedded? It's all those kind of things that is quite tricky, but longer term. And I think that's why I enjoy it, because it is longer term and you really, really build that relationship.
Yeah, and then any change, there comes fear, right? People are
Yeah.
scared of change. How's it going to impact me?
Yeah.
Roles can overlap. Uh, yes,
Yeah.
many balls can get dropped because there's confusion. How have you helped clients overcome that fear? And I guess it's more their teams, isn't it, than the
Yeah. Well, sometimes, I mean, usually the senior person, like kind of it's either a COO or a managing director or a director. They're usually the ones that have got that awareness that, oh, I'm at that point now where I need some external help, because we're scaling up. And it's not, and interestingly, every client I've have had some sort of HR support, like from the big
Mm.
consultancies, because they might need, we might have an employee relations issue or those kind of tricky ER stuff, and they'll pick up the phone and they'll get some help, but that can only take you so far. And actually, when you want somebody partnering you in the business, that's when they realize, actually, I need something a bit more than this. So usually they're on board. It's then usually the management team they are really the change agents, because they've
Mm.
got to manage their own team. So it's giving them the tools and the skills to do that, and the confidence. Quite often it's confidence, and how to kind of, that to bring their own coaching style to their teams. It's all about, I'm such a fan of coaching, is that bringing that coaching culture through. But that's a bit I really enjoy, because I do think those middle managers, those front line managers, they are at the forefront of it, and they can be wedged between their team and what's happening at a higher level, and how do they bring that down. They're usually the ones that are the success or the failure of any kind of change, really. So it's really supporting them. And sometimes it's just being on the end of a phone saying, right, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think? Again, that coaching style where
Yeah.
they're bouncing ideas off and they've got a safe space where they can talk about scenarios or, things like that.
Yeah. And when you look at those kind of situations, how has that then helped them overall, over and above the scenarios you talked about, from kind of where you've taken, say, a line manager here at the beginning of the journey to now doubled size, probably a bigger team, more responsibility? Talk us through that journey. What does that look like?
So that's an interesting because sometimes in a couple of occasions they've ended up bringing in like a team leader or somebody underneath them, and then that's really interesting because then it's about letting go a little bit and that delegation stuff. Because I think in small businesses, and actually, and even in the larger ones I support as well, there's an element of leading and managing, but also the doing.
Mm,
And sometimes it's that separation of getting them to helicopter up sometimes and see the bigger picture. That's the bit that once you've managed to achieve that, it becomes a lot simpler because they can let go and they can realize that actually if I give them the guardrails and let them give them the autonomy, I'm getting more from this. And they've got the time to spend on other things that they see the value in now that they maybe didn't need to do before. So yeah, again, it's all about mindset. But it's lovely when I had a manager say to me recently, she goes, I just feel so much more confident now when I'm going into these. Sometimes they'll tell me after the event, and this is what I did. And it's almost like you'll be proud of me, a bit like a
oh,
bit like when they're like, I did a good job, didn't I? But it's that confidence of they can deal with those challenging conversations or positive ones in a very different way, and that's the
yeah.
nice bit.
Yeah, and it's a real gift, I think, and it takes a long time to be able to have a conversation, separate yourself from that conversation,
Yeah.
and almost walk around the topic, without, to your point, without taking it personally, without
Yeah.
thinking, oh, this is a personal attack or a dig or a. You,
Yeah.
often think that the expression "it's just business" is clumsy, but actually, there's real meaning behind it if you can unpack that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And as the other interesting thing with working for smaller companies, and again, I can say this reflecting on larger companies as well, because even when I was employed and I worked for the same company for 12 years, 15 years altogether, because I went back as a consultant, and I was very emotionally invested in that business, not just the people, but the business. I really, really cared. And I think you see that even more so with small companies because it really is their baby sometimes. So this is where the emotional intelligence stuff comes in sometimes. It's
Mm.
about how to regulate that and separate it sometimes, and when to step away and have somebody from outside in looking at it, because actually, can you see this, without the rose tinted glasses or the emotion attached to it? Because that can be really tough.
How do you help a line manager or a senior member of the team who is, let's just say, slightly disconnected from their emotional intelligence?
Happens a lot. I've got loads of tools that I might use. I do the EQ and equality actually came from emotional intelligence because that was the bit that I was most fascinated with. And I think when you talk to leaders about emotional intelligence and you talk about it in more of a scientific way in terms of how do you why is your brain reacting in certain ways? Why are people behaving in certain things? It's a genuine curiosity then. When you start talking to them about soft skills and empathy and emotion, they immediately switch off. I
Yeah.
tend to work a lot with engineers and very technical people who are fantastic people, but just the words and the language you use with them can turn them off.
Mm, mm.
But if you're talking about it as a science, they're like, "Oh, there's actual proper research into this. Oh, okay, I can see you kind of tapping into that logical side of the brain to understand the emotional side of the brain." I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to things like that. And that's how I kind of get in with it because it's like, oh, it's a science. Okay, yeah, this is worth listening to. I understand it now.
I love it. And you're right, it's about flexing your style. I remember years ago, you know, as well as you know me,
Yeah,
I'm, as you know, a, a huge extrovert. And
yeah,
I remember going into a room and we were delivering some coaching for analytical introverts
yeah.
in a scientific research company. Well, they couldn't have picked a worse trainer than me going in
Yeah, I can imagine.
to deliver it. And I think they were just as frustrated as I was by the end of it. You know, they were bamboozled by my personality, even though I'd really toned it down.
I
And
can
yeah,
just imagine it. They
when
were
we
probably
ran
like,
it, when we ran it again, it was like something out of the office. You know, it just didn't work, right? It was just.
yeah, it's so funny. It's so funny.
How have you seen some of the challenges companies are facing? How's that changed from a couple of years ago to now?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, well, I tell you what I'm super interested in is this whole future of work, because I feel like we're on the tip of a change and the next kind of phase in the world of work. I mean, we've still already seen loads of changes with COVID and things like that, but I do really think this next generation coming in is going to have a big impact. And I think I don't want to talk about politics because it's just a bit depressing, but the political element is also playing a part.
Mm,
And it's this whole I think it's going to be a tougher marketplace for businesses and for finding the right skills and the right employees, but also the competition with their competitors as well. It's just quite a tricky place to navigate. So I think this whole kind of what culture you stand for as a business is more important than ever before.
mm,
And I know there's lots of talk of the DEI stuff all being scaled back and all of this kind of stuff, but actually there is still a massive place for culture, and
mm.
there's the birth rate's reducing, so we're gonna have to think a little bit outside the box about what does the future of work look like. Yes, we've got AI, how are we gonna use that? All of these things we really need to be thinking about, because if we're not thinking about it now, it's gonna be too late because they're all gonna be in the workplace. And then the other side of the coin is, looking after the young people now, because they're not geared up for the world of work at all. I do a lot of work in schools and stuff around trying to get them to understand the skills we're actually looking for, but then also getting organizations to understand the skills we're
Mm.
looking for. Not, "Oh, I want somebody that's gone to Imperial for 4 years." Yeah, that's fantastic, and there is a place for that, but it's not everything. Um,
Yeah, and it's really interesting. I think in one of the other shows and episodes, we touched on this, and I don't actually think it's just the generation coming in.
yeah.
I think it's our generation. I don't. I mean, I'm completely unemployable now. I think I'd be fired within the first hour.
I'm getting
I mean, I
there.
don't think even if it's worth applying, frankly. But um, I have the ability and technology to be able to work from anywhere. I'll
Yeah,
invest in that.
yeah,
I'll invest in my understanding of AI and how to use that in automation. Um, and what a new commercial world could look like for HRs. Because obviously, my whole thing is I want to keep all of you relevant and amplify your voices so you're successful.
yeah,
Um,
and we
but
appreciate it.
but I'm not going to have anyone, saying you've got to be in the office at 9 o'clock. It's a flat no.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I also understand the privilege I've got and worked hard to achieve to be able to do that. Um, so I think that train's already left the station. To
yeah,
your point, it's
yeah,
about other companies who want more of that raw talent to catch up.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I was in a school yesterday actually, because I'm doing this mentoring with a GCSE uh, girl, and had this networking thing, and we were saying that actually the challenges with their generation around, oh, there's going to be more portfolio work and there's not a career for life anymore. Most people in that room were around the age of like 35 to 60, and we all said, yeah, but it was the same. for us, actually.
Mm.
There's very few of us that have had one career, so it's not that different. So why is it it's almost like we forget that the changes that we've been through ourselves, because the world of work is completely different in my lifetime, and I've still got another 20 odd years to go.
And and I agree with you. And Zoe Walters made a really good point when she came on as a guest, and she was saying that, you know, our generation, we're the bridge generation. We've kind
Yeah,
of seen how it was to how it's going.
yes.
And I agree with you. You know, I remember I was 21. I worked for the head of IBD at Goldman Sachs. He was the most terrifying man that you can
I bet,
imagine.
I bet.
And you know, he asked me to do things, and I said to him no, and he said, "Well, no one's ever said no to me before." I went, "Well, get used to it." You know, it was just
Yeah,
so. I think so much of it has been coming along.
yeah,
I'd like to see more of the portfolio careers, and you know, I was listening to an interview the other day with some, you know, Gen Zs who were saying, "Well, I don't want to be like my parents. Their parents, same job all their lives, you know,
yeah.
the classic, we're working for the carriage clock and to be able to retire at 65." And it's, there's almost a sense that that kind of mentality, and you know, totally fine if others are out there are of that mindset, for me just feels outdated. Because
Yeah.
you know, when I look at my energy and levels and my career now, well, it is portfolio based, and I
Mm,
have fingers in many pies, and I probably have more energy now than I did in my 20s.
yeah, yeah.
Siobhan, where would you like to see the world of work go? What's your
Um,
hopes and dreams?
I would like them to become, I don't know, this is battered around quite a bit, but more human centric. And we are seeing it as a almost like a human centric organization is becoming a bit of a tagline, but that's genuinely what I would like. Um, and I do think a lot of organizations are going that way, but there's also some that seem to be going backwards, which is a little bit scary.
Yeah.
But it's that whole, you know, is a lot more individualist than it used to be.
Mm,
And there's a lot of things around, I do a lot of work around neurodiversity and how, you know, we're missing a massive trick with people that just think slightly differently, who can bring so much value just because of we need to think in a different way. So it's that kind of, I suppose, a bit more creative in how we approach skills and what do we mean by that, and
mm,
what does success look like as well? That's another thing
yes.
is needs to be reframed, I would say.
And I think that's a great question, because it's such an open-ended question.
Mm,
It's one of my faves. You know, what does success look like for you as a business? And you mentioned something that I think is so important as well moving forward, which is that whole culture piece.
yeah.
Companies are going to join cultures and communities. I very much think that companies will be more community driven, because they're a blend of office and remote.
Yeah.
And some will be fully remote and work from anywhere. That there are many now, and I love the fact that some of them all invest what would have gone into an office space into bringing everyone together collectively on a
Mm.
global basis for, you know, quarterly get-togethers, for coaching, for training, for travel, for, you know, really bonding that team in a very different way.
Yes.
um, so I love that element of creativity. When you look at that creativity, what does that mean for you, and what would you like companies to think more about? You mentioned that neurodiversity, which I think is really important. What else
Yeah.
is in mind for you?
I think that flexibility and creativity is a key thing. Um, one of the other tools I use alongside the emotional intelligence training stuff is a tool called the GC Index, the Game Changing Index, and there's a couple of others of us in your group. And why that resonated with me so much is it's all about making your best impact. So wherever your energy comes from, that's where you make your impact. And wouldn't it be a great world if everyone felt like they were making an impact somewhere,
Mm,
whatever that looks like? And if we could harness that and bottle it, it would just be, it's not just the world of work. It's just when I've used the GC index, they give us ones for our friends and family. It actually has influenced my home life because it's
Wow.
about relationships, whether that's in work or at home. And, whereas my husband and I might have a row one day because we were doing some DIY, we were actually laughing about it because I was saying, "Look, this is our proclivities. This is where our energies are coming to life. You can see how we're falling into these roles. Whereas before we might have annoyed each other. Now we see it in a very different lens." It's really funny. It was a real eye opener to me, how that kind of just thinking in a different way about why people do certain things, where you get your energies from, and if everyone felt that they were having an impact, like they had a purpose, then it would just make the place a nicer place, for the world a nicer place, wouldn't it?
Oh my goodness. I often think about the janitor at NASA when JFK
Yes.
said to him, well, what's your job here? He said, I'm helping
Yeah.
get get the astronauts to the moon. And if I could bottle that moment and find out just why he, what made him say that, where did that come from? I'd love to go back to that moment in time and just because it's famous now. We all
Yeah.
know it. We all have kind of grasped that.
Yeah, yeah, and whatever they were doing there that made everyone, and that's the dream, right? Is that everyone feels they understand their place in the bigger picture and what their impact is and what value whatever their role is. So whatever they'd done at NASA, I mean, it's one of those companies that probably is quite inspiring anyway, but whatever they did, they obviously worked around that buy-in, that kind of, I guess, in it's that hearts and minds
Yeah,
stuff, isn't it?
totally. Totally. When we look at the hearts and minds and all the great work you're doing, what are your hopes and dreams for your business?
For my business, I tell you, I would like to help more smaller businesses because when I started out my business, my background is in big multinational
Mm,
corporations. They're great fun places to be because there's lots of change and lots of projects and cutting edge stuff. But I completely underestimated how much I would enjoy working for smaller businesses because I can make quite a big impact quicker.
mm.
Um, so I want to be doing more of that, kind of bringing some of that technology, forward thinking business ideas to smaller businesses that got more of that entrepreneurial flexibility and agility that I can learn from. That's quite exciting for me because it's a new environment. So I want to be doing more of that. I help companies to grow really. So if
Yeah,
it's a
me
company that wants me to come in and sack everyone, they're probably not for me. But if it's a company that's like, look, we're scaling up, I want to grow the business, or they're naturally growing the business, or maybe I've even had conversations around exit. My business is growing. I know I'm going to take it so far, and I'm going to have to step away and either sell the business or get a managing director in, or something. And how do I do that? So then it's not only just impacting the business; it's impacting the individual as well. And that's where I'm very much all about relationships. That's what gives me energy. So it's that genuine partnering that I enjoy the most. Like, the HR stuff, it depends on what the business needs are, and that's kind of almost by the by. It's the relationship bit that's the important bit for me. So I want to be doing more of that because it's fun and exciting, and yeah, and more coaching as well.
And I can see that, you've invested so heavily in your own development, not only commercially, but in terms of the tools that you're using now. It's and how you're using them. I've seen a real evolution in you in terms of, taking them standalone and systemizing them to what you talked about before and really kind of feeling into it, if you like. And I
Yeah.
don't think there's any other way, really.
No, I don't think so. And one of the things that I've learned about myself, through being coached through my own GC index profile and things like that is I don't consider myself particularly creative. So I'm not very good at coming up with a revolutionary new idea. But what I am good at is taking other people's ideas and joining the dots and like, oh, actually, and jumping ahead there, this is how this could be used. And you need both, right? You
Mm.
need the people that have the ideas and you need somebody to catch those ideas and do something with them. And that's the other thing I've really enjoyed is actually looking outside more from leaving a corporate world. You start to pay a bit more attention to what's going on. You come up with all these fantastic ideas that are going on, and it's like, oh, I can do something with that. It can be a bit, oh, I want to do everything, but it's seeing the value of it with this work in my situation. Actually, yeah, that could be really helpful. Let's adapt it to what I need it to be. So that's my take on creativity, I suppose.
And I was about to say, you said at the beginning you weren't very creative, and as you were going on, I was thinking, "Yep, no, that's pretty creative.
I'm
Yep,
just not
definitely
very
creative."
original, I suppose. Maybe that's the better word. I'm not very original, but when somebody's got an out the box idea, I'd be like, oh, interesting. I'm very open to ideas. I'm just not very good at creating them myself, I think would be maybe.
But you're such a curious person, which is why you're a great coach, right? Because you're naturally inquisitive. And I
Yeah.
suppose having these systems and processes that you now have, that's what's really compounded your experience, your learning, your knowledge to have this impact on some of the clients you're working with.
Yeah, and actually you just triggered something in my brain, because the reason I got into HR in the first place is because I was curious or nosy, depending on how you want to think about it. And HR is one of those unique roles where you do get a lot of exposure in a lot of things, and you know what's going on before most people know, and you can see things coming before other people can see it coming. And I really like that. I really like that. And actually, that's probably why I enjoy working for myself more than I ever thought I would, is
Yeah.
because I can be really curious and know what's going on, or be nosy, whichever way you want to look at it.
Well, I love that, and I love that, and I think I'm like you. One of the reasons why I knew this was my last and biggest and most heartfelt business actually,
Uh,
um, literally came from one night where I'd driven my husband nuts because it was all slow down. Look at their lights, look at their curtains. It's that lovely time of night where it's dusk and you can see into people's homes and houses, and you get
yeah,
ideas of wallpaper and lights and curtains, and
yeah.
I'm unashamedly nosy like that and join in conversations. I'm awful. So it's been great to be able to channel it. As you know, Siobhan, as you've seen.
Yes. Yeah, but it's fantastic seeing you in a room. It's like, I need to pick up some of these tips. But if you are coming at it from genuine curiosity and I'm interested in people, it's easier to have those conversations, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I genuinely want to know.
What's the quirkiest situation you've been put in the last couple of years from a coaching perspective?
Ooh. I wouldn't say it was quirky, but an exciting situation I was in. I was asked by a lovely colleague to do some training for a very high-end fashion label in London. It was because she couldn't, it's her client, but she couldn't get down there. So she thought of me because they need somebody with a bit of facilitation, a bit of coaching, and a bit of HR background. So she's like, "Oh, could you do that?" And I was like, "Yeah." And it was actually held in their so the room where people would go and try on the clothes and drink champagne and stuff. But they were refurbing the store, so all the clothes were up there, and I was surrounded by just these beautiful, stunning clothes. And this is somebody that's worked in engineering environments my whole life. So I was like, my God, and I had to really focus because I was so wanting to just do like a fashion montage, like in an 80s film.
Yeah, I bet you were.
Just
I'd
like,
have
can you
been
just
the
say dress
same.
up, please, and just do that instead. No, I had to be professional. So it's not particularly quirky, but it was a very different environment than I was used to. Yeah, there's no steel cap toe shoes anywhere.
Yeah,
Pretty lots of sparkle and glitz, and I was like, I think this is probably more my vibe. Actually, I've been doing it wrong the last 20 years.
that sounds like so much fun.
It was, and they were lovely people as well. It was really fun. It was a really good couple of days. So yeah, any other fashion labels out there, happy to come, and I won't do a fashion montage unless they really want me to.
She's also very good at social media. So if you want to get your brand out there as a responsible
Yeah,
organisation, she can also help with that. So
absolutely,
get in
absolutely.
touch with Siobhan for that.
Yeah.
So, this is the part of the show where I have some very important questions for you.
Okay,
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Awesome. What is your favourite cheese?
My favourite cheese, it's
Mhm.
quite a hard one because I do love cheese. I would say brie, but with a bit of, like, onion chutney on the side.
Oh, did we share a cheese platter at that Posh Pants hotel that time at
We
the end?
did, we did.
Yeah,
That was a nice hotel. That was nice food.
that was good food. I know we had to
Yeah,
march, but it was. I think it was worth the march down there.
it was. It was.
So brilliant. I know cheese is always a difficult one, and then the pickles that go with it, and then the biscuits. I mean, this is a big subject. We don't have
It
time for that. But it's
is. I could talk about an hour for that.
yeah, I know. We just haven't got the time. Um, when you look at, I don't know if you're a film buff or you love watching films, but what's the worst film that you've watched that you've over the last year that you really feel that you're not going to get those precious moments in your life back again?
I don't even remember what it was called. It was that bad. It was a film that my husband and son wanted to watch, and it was one of those stupid ones in space where it had no meaning and there was no point to it, and I don't really understand what they're trying to achieve. I can't even remember what it was called now. I'll have to Google it. Sorry, I should have thought ahead.
No, no problem at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, and probably just as well because I don't want to be sued at any point about the fact that we've slagged off a film. So probably just good. So as you know, I'm a water baby. In it, on it, under it, got to be in it. So for me, this is a really important question to help me get to know you better.
Right.
If you were to go on holiday, what flotation device would you take and why, please?
Well, we do take a flotation device on holiday, every holiday.
Right.
But so one of our first family holidays when the kids were little, we got my son a blow up. It was actually a dolphin that he
Oh,
Sharky, and it's not a shark, blatantly, it's a blatant dolphin. But we ended up bringing him home, and then he's come on every holiday since. Sharky, which is actually a dolphin. So that's who we
love
bring, and he survived all these. My son's actually too big for him now because he's nearly 6 foot, 15-year-old. So, but he still comes because our daughter can can play on him. So
I love that. A family flotation. Oh,
family Sharky, there you go. Who isn't a Sharky that isn't a shark, but name stuck.
that's a heartfelt story. I love that. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Siobhan, you've been just a cracking member of first the business clinic and now the business club as we know it today.
Yeah.
If anyone's listening to this either live today or on the recording, what's your take? What have you got from the business club, and how would you describe it for them?
Oh, I don't know how to describe it, but I've got so much. So there's the practical side, which is, none of us, well, most of us aren't from a sales or marketing background. Never had to done a bit of networking, but not to this extent. To get the tips and sometimes you'll say things and you're like, God, that's so obvious, but it wouldn't have occurred to me. So there's the practical side, but there's also that community, isn't there? That's just invaluable. There's some great people in the club. Again, made friends, done some collaboration with some of them
So,
as well. And you're always there. So, there's the regular calls and you learn from everyone else's input as well. We help each other all the time. So yeah, it's that community thing. And then when we get to see each other in real life, like when we did the pitch club in London and stuff, it's such a nice day. It's not just learning and self-development, it's just a
yeah.
nice time. So it's just and it's great
Oh,
fun.
thank you, Siobhan. And I just, I love working with you, as you know. And yeah, we are putting our day together in October for UK members. So, yes, we are working hard on that now. So, I'm excited.
Amazing. No, it really is a pleasure. It
So,
really
you've
is.
talked about a lot about the great work you can do. If someone's listening to this and saying, I need Siobhan in my life, how do they get in touch with you?
Of LinkedIn, or they can email me, Siobhan@qualitycoaching.co.uk, which will change because I don't just do coaching, but there you go. But yeah, they would be the easiest ways. But yeah, anyone that's, got my vibe, who want to grow and have fun on the way and learn some stuff, then let's work together.
Yeah, and please do reach out to her. Not only is she a huge fun, she's a font of so much knowledge, and really knows her onions. So, even if it's something that you're looking at down the line later on this year, please reach out to her. I genuinely mean that. She's going to be a huge asset to you and your organisation. Siobhan, it's been such a pleasure talking to you today. You and I can talk for hours. We have.
We can.
We
Yeah.
have.
At least we haven't got a glass of wine in front of us this time, so otherwise there'd be no stopping
I
us.
was just about to say this has been an alcohol-free conversation. We need to put that right. Yes, she is a diamond, Simon. So thank you so much for saying that.
Oh, Simon.
She really is. So
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate you saying that. So from Siobhan and me, thank you for listening in today. Please reach out to her. So it's goodbye from me and goodbye from Siobhan.